Hello everyone, this is Phil, user PhD 20. Create a tutorial on how easy it is to add a VPN, but in addition to that, it's important to change your local internet service provider's DNS domain name server IP addresses. So the title of this tutorial is how to set up a VPN server connection using the openVPN protocol, the most secure VPN protocol, in Linux Mint 18. I'm using Cinnamon, this Linux Mint 18.3 Cinnamon desktop, using the network manager from your system tray panel, and how to change your local ISP's default DNS server IP addresses. These are both pretty simple procedures to do, and they're both important options to consider. For most of us that have internet access, we use it every single day for communicating with each other, for online shopping, online banking, paying bills, education, business. The problem is that when you're surfing the internet, unless you take precautions, everything you do is in plain language, meaning that your internet service provider or anybody that is monitoring your internet connection can tell what you're doing in great detail. I mean, they know every website you're visiting. In some cases, they can tell exactly what you're doing. Hackers can, if they're monitoring your connection, can steal your passwords. They can try to hack into your system and changing your DNS server IP addresses and using an VPN server connection are two relatively simple ways to protect yourself, and they're related. When you connect to the internet, your system actually, and every device that connects to the internet actually gets two addresses called IP addresses, Internet Protocol addresses, and they're unique numbers that identify each computer and device that's connected. First, it connects to your what they call a local area network. At home, you have a modem/router that connects to the internet. You may have a separate router, which is a device, and everything that connects when you first turn on your computers and other devices and stuff like that too, they get an internet, an IP address. That way it knows which machine or which device, that the information you're requesting or receiving knows where to go. As soon as you can, and that's called a LAN, local area network IP address. As soon as you connect to the internet, though, your internet service provider, wherever that is, whether you're at home, a friend's house, public Wi-Fi, restaurant, whatever, you get another IP address. That IP address is called a WAN, or Wide Area Network IP address. It's often referred to as a public IP address. And that is a lot like your home address or mailing address. everything you do on the internet, every website you visit, every internet service you connect to, they see that. And anybody who knows how can use that to identify where you are. Now, if you're at home, then they know exactly where your home is. So it's a good idea to and when you use a virtual private network, a VPN connection, you're actually connecting. You connect to the internet, and then you also connect to the VPN, which is a separate system of servers that connects to the internet, and you're actually connecting to their network, and then connecting, and everything you do on the internet is going through them with a different IP address that does not identify who you are. It also encrypts the data. Instead of being in plain language, it's encrypted and almost impossible for anybody to tell what you're doing. Now, one of the issues is that people don't realize is your internet service provider. Now, if you click on your network manager icon, or even mouse over it, it'll say, hey, you're connected either by an Ethernet cable or using a Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi adapter or something like that. If you click on that, it shows how you're connected. It shows VPN connections if you have them. Your internet service provider that provides you that your IP address and all that. They also provide what's called a domain name service directory. It's basically a directory of all the websites and internet services that are available. They have the ability, and they do monitor what you're doing. They also have the ability to block your access to certain websites or certain internet services, and unfortunately they even have the ability to sell that data to others, which is, in my opinion, not a very good thing. They can also block you from connecting to a VPN provider in certain countries, in certain regions. So, I always tell everybody, one of the first things you should do on your computer systems, and you could do it on phones, smartphones, and stuff like that too, is to change your internet service provider, their default IP address, DNS IP addresses, to those from what they call a DNS provider. These are companies, or mostly companies, but they could be individuals as well, that provide secure and anonymous DNS servers. And the DNS servers are basically like a large phone book. It's a directory, like I said before, of all the websites and everything that you access on the internet. So your internet service provider has the ability, as I just mentioned, to block that, to manipulate that, they can even slow down your connection. If you're watching a lot of movies or TV shows on the internet, or you're an online gamer, they will sometimes what they call throttling your internet service connection. They'll actually slow it down. And I'm not sure that they're supposed to be doing that, but they do. And by changing your local internet service provider's DNS server IP addresses, they cannot tell what you're doing. And there's a lot of different companies that provide DNS servers servers. Maybe not a lot, but there's a few really good ones. A new one that just came out is called is from a company called Cloudflare, and they're claiming that their DNS servers are the most secure, fastest ones available. Another is openDNS, and they provide various kinds of DNS services. If you've got children that you don't want to, access certain adult websites, or you want to be protected from known bad websites, that have viruses or malware and stuff like that, you can use their service. And there's OpenNIC, which provides various DNS servers for people all over the place. And there's various guides on how to do that. OpenDNS has a superb setup instructions, and I will put links below my video tutorial regarding this, although they're already on the Linux Mint forums. But in fact, on my screen right now, I'm showing you that there's different ways to change your DNS servers IP addresses, and you can do it from each device, like each computer, and it's pretty easy. So when I show you, you'll understand. And you can do it from smartphones. You could do it from game consoles, smart TVs, TV sticks, stuff like that. The other is through that device called a router, which most people have. If you change it in the router, then any device that connects to it will use those DNS IP addresses. The downside of that is, if you've got children in the house and stuff like that, and you decide to use a family safe DNS server IP addresses, that means that so is everybody else, which means all adults in the house are also restricted to that, unless you piggyback another router, which means you add another router, and you set that router up for the children with its own password, so they can't change it, because smart children can change their desktops and smartphones and stuff like that. But if you put it in the router, the hardware router, they can't do that. Now, I'm going to show you how to change it from the Linux Mint desktop, in this case the Cinnamon desktop. It's pretty similar. Linux Mint has 4 wonderful versions: Cinnamon, Mate, XFCE, and KDE, and they're all pretty similar. The KDE is a little bit different. I'll probably have to create another video for that, but Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE should work very similar to the tutorial I'm doing right now. Let me show you how to change the DNS server IP addresses. Now, if you bring up a browser and you go to any one of these DNS providers, DNS Watch is another good one, by the way, that I've used for years. I recently switched to this new one from Cloudflare because it's new, and I wanted to try it, and it does work well. But so do the others. So if you click on the Network Manager, there are 2 options at the bottom of Cinnamon. I don't know why there's 2 options, because they both do pretty much the same thing. There's network settings and network connections, and you can accomplish the same tasks through each one. So if you click network connections, it pops pops up a screen. And if you're connected to an Ethernet cable, it'll show that, then you would click that, and then you would click Edit. If you're connected to Wi-Fi, using a Wi-Fi adapter, which is how I'm connected, then click that connection. And then you click Edit. And another screen pops up. And that's your Edit Connection screen. And you'll be on, in my case, because I'm using a Wi-Fi adapter, I'm on a Wi-Fi screen. If you click on Wi-Fi security, there's the security stuff, and then there's two tabs. One's called an IP version 4 settings, and another is IP version 6 settings. Now, if you remember, I said that every device that connects to the internet, it's basically getting two IP addresses. The one local IP address, which almost always starts with 192.168.some number or 10.some number. But that's only for devices communicating within your house or dwelling, the local area network or business. It's the wide area network IP address that is what everybody else on the internet sees. Now, to complicate that a little bit further, there are two types of IP addresses. There's the IP version 4 addresses, because when the internet was created, they didn't realize how popular it was going to become. And IP version 4 is limited to a little over 4 billion IP addresses. And that's been used up. So they came out with IP version 6 IP addresses to solve that problem. Now, most internet service providers and websites and everything like that are still using IP version 4, but they could be using IP version 6 as well. So I'm gonna show you how to update both of them. If you're having a problem accessing websites, then chances are you need to disable the IPv6 settings. But anyway, now I've already changed my default ISP connections, DNS servers. Normally, when you get it to this screen, it will be on automatic DHCP. You need to change that to automatic DHCP addresses only. Then you can just copy the DNS server IP addresses from the DNS provider that you want to use into where it says DNS servers. And it's whatever their IP address number is, comma, there's no spaces, and then it's a good idea to use at least 2 DNS server IP addresses. Now, I happen to be using the DNS watch ones at the moment. And if you go to their screen, they tell you what they are. The ones here, 84.200.69.80, and those are IP version 4 DNS server IP addresses, and these longer ones are IPv version 6. And now if you go back to the connections, you can see that you could just, and you can literally copy them from here, but you got to make sure that there's no spaces. It's the number, comma, and another number. Now, If you did not want to use the IP version 6, you could just click require IPv4 here, and then it will use that. And sometimes, if you're having trouble accessing web pages or stuff like that, you may need to do that. Otherwise, you can click on IPv6 and copy the IPv6 IP addresses into that. In the same scenario, it's whatever that number and comma, no spaces, and the number again, and then you just click save. That is how simple it is to change your DNS server IP addresses. You have to at least log out and log back in, or restart your computer for them to take effect. Now, because Linux Mint Cinnamon has two methods of doing this, and I just showed you the method using the network connections options, I'm going to click the network settings options now and show you how to change it to that. Okay, it's a very similar process. Now, using the network settings, even though the screen's different, it's pretty similar. Okay. However you're connecting to the internet will have a check mark next to it, whether it's wired or Wi-Fi. To the right of that, there is a gear button, and that's a settings button. Just click that, and it gives you information on your connection. Click the IPv version 4. Now, instead of having the DNS, and change the, it's probably already on automatic DHCP, which is fine in this case, but you need to turn off the automatic DNS. Now here you just click a button from on to off. And now you enter in, one at a time, the DNS server IP addresses from whichever DNS server provider you're going to use. You enter in one, then you click the plus sign, it'll pop up another box, enter in the other, click apply, click on the I'm going back in there. You didn't have to click apply right then, but click on the IPv6 tab, do the same thing. Make sure that it's automatic. Turn off the automatic button next to DNS. Enter in your IPv6 DNS address, IP address. Click the plus sign, which will pop up another box. Enter in the second one. Now you can click apply. And that's it. That's how simple it is to change your default, your local internet service provider, ISP, default DNS name servers. Now, once you've done that, you should restart your computer, or at least log out and log back in for that to take effect. I think it's a good idea, personally, before you change your DNS server IP addresses or connect to a VPN, pardon me, to note what your local ISP internet IP address is, your public IP address, as well as what your internet service provider's default DNS server IP addresses are. That way, when you change them, you know that they changed. And one of the ways to do that, one of the easier ways to do that, is to go to a website that checks it for you. And one of my favorites is called ipleak.net. And it will show you your public IP address, which is the one you want to mask, which by by adding a VPN will do that. It will also show you your DNS server IP addresses. Now, I've already changed mine, and so it's using the ones from DNS Watch. You know, it's a good idea to write these down, or print screen, or screen capture it or something, so that you know that when you change your DNS server IP addresses, that they change. Or if you connect to a virtual private network, which is supposed to hide your public IP address, your WAN IP address, that changes. Now, here's mine right now, and I'm going to change that by adding a VPN connection. And then I'll verify it afterwards by going to ipleak.net. There's other websites that do that too. Now, there are various kinds of VPN options. Now, VPN is just a virtual private network, like I said before. It's another network that connects to the internet, which works on top of or alongside your current internet connection. When you connect to the internet, and then as soon as you connect to a virtual private network, all your internet traffic is going through that with a new IP address, which protects you because it's not using your IP address, it's using whatever server you connect to, which are located all over the world. You get to choose which one. Or in a country like the United States, where there's multiple states, you could pick whatever state you want. In addition to that, it also encrypts whatever you're doing, which means almost no one can determine what you're doing, which makes it much safer for doing online banking or paying bills or even sending emails and stuff like that. And as I just pointed out, there are various VPN options, one of which are called system-wide VPN providers, which is when you add it through your network manager. Everything on your desktop, in this case Linux Mint, is going to go through that virtual private network. There are also browser virtual private network add-ons, and a really good one is called HOXX, HOXX. And when you connect to that, it protects you while you're in the browser, but it doesn't protect the rest of your system. So if you're using a chat messaging application or an email client, that's not going to be protected by the virtual, by a VPN connection. Only what you do in the browser is being protected by the VPN connection. If you're using a browser VPN, there are also browser there are also websites that are called VPN proxy websites, where if you go there and you type in an address, a web address, someplace you want to go to, everything that you do from that point forward will try to protect you with their VPN proxy. That's not as secure as using a system-wide VPN or even a browser add-on VPN. Now, there are a lot of VPN providers available. And they have servers all over the world. And you may want to use one for the country you're in. You may want to use one for a different country. And like I just said, in certain countries where they've got multiple regions or states, like the United States, they will have some in almost every state there is. One of the best ones out there is called Private Internet Access, PIA. They also help out. They're a contributor to Linux Mint, so if you sign up with them, they also help out. Linux Mint and Private Internet Access work together. In fact, there's special software for that as well. And a paid-for VPN provider, they only cost a few bucks, a few dollars a month. And they are better than using a free VPN. Yes, there are free VPN providers, but they have restrictions. You can't do anything and everything you want. You can't use torrent downloads. You can't use P2P programs, which usually eliminates any online gaming or anything like that. They might have time restrictions, meaning you can only use it for so many hours per month or per day, and various other restrictions as well. The paid-for VPN providers like Private Internet Access, which is an excellent low-cost provider, you can do whatever you want, and they've got servers everywhere. Another advantage of using a VPN is that if you wanted to learn about a different culture, or maybe you're from a different country and you happen to be in a different country at the moment, but you want to be able to see something in the country you're from, or maybe you're just curious about what's going on in a different country. Well, unfortunately, and I find this hard to believe in today's world, that countries are blocking access to people outside their country. So even though I'm in the United States, if I wanted to watch a concert in London, I won't be able to do that usually, unless I connect to a VPN server that's in that country. Then when I connect, all their websites and will think that I'm located in that country. That's another great reason for using a VPN, and they call that geographical blocking, geo-blocking. And you can get around that by using a VPN provider services. Another excellent VPN provider is called Proton VPN. They're located in Switzerland, a neutral country. There are people that claim that that you should not use a VPN provider in the country that's headquartered in the country you're in, so that they can't be forced to divulge your activity. Almost all good VPN providers do not keep records of what you're doing. They may keep a record of, when you log on and when you log off, but they don't keep any activity. And any VPN provider that does is not a VPN provider you want to use. The ones I'm bringing up do not. And like I said, they're all reasonably priced. Most of them are only a few dollars a month, and you can pay by year or you can pay by month, and they are better. Some of them can even make your internet access faster, because their servers are faster than your local internet service provider servers. Now, one of the other questions that pops up frequently is, what is openVPN? Now, these VPN providers which are mostly businesses, but they can be people as well. They have different ways that you can connect to the VPN. Encryption protocols. The most secure of those is called openVPN. Now, unfortunately, it seems to confuse a lot of people in the Linux Mint forums. They're like, well, how do I activate openVPN? Or what is openVPN? Is that also a VPN provider? And the answer is, it's a company that created the most secure VPN connection encryption protocol. But they are also a VPN provider, and their VPN is called Private Tunnel. Also very reasonably priced. But they gave everyone, everywhere in the world, the ability to use their secure encryption connection software for free. And it's included, it's already pre-installed in all editions of Linux Mint. So there's nothing to activate. It's behind the scenes. When you set up your VPN connection to whichever server or servers from your VPN provider, the openVPN software is already there. You can update to a newer version of the openVPN software, which I do recommend, and I have instructions on doing that on a post on the Linux Mint forums, which I will also provide links to. And I personally think that's a good idea. Now, some of the newer VPN providers will require you to do that, because the openVPN software that's available, that's already pre-installed in your Linux Mint system, is a little bit older. Proton VPN was one of those. I could not connect to that unless I was using a newer version. Now, so the first thing to do when you're deciding on, okay, I want to also connect to the internet and using a VPN and be encrypted, so that my internet service provider, or anyone else for that matter, can't monitor everything I'm doing or try and steal my passwords or hack into my system. And using a VPN provider is a great way to go. If you can afford to to pay for a VPN provider, that is the best way to go. If you can, and if you cannot, well then you have to find a free VPN provider. I've done a lot of research on this, and there's various VPN providers, free ones as well. Most of them, though, are very, very limited. You can only use it for an hour a day, or a couple hours a day, or a couple hours a month, or they're restricted by what you do. 10 gigabytes a month, how much bandwidth you're using. There's a couple exceptions to that. One is called VPN Book, which I have on the screen right now. They provide free VPN service, unlimited. I mean, you can use it as often as you want, whenever you want. The only thing is that they change their login password, almost weekly. Like, if not every week, then every 2 weeks. And so you'll have to edit your VPN connection to change that. That's a minor inconvenience, considering it's free, and it's pretty fast. But they do not allow certain activity. If you click on the openVPN protocol, you can see where it says that web surfing only, no torrent downloading, no P2P. I don't do online gaming, so I don't know if they will allow that or not. And even though they don't have that restriction listed on their European servers, a couple of the European servers, I've tried it, and it still doesn't work on those, at least not for me. Now, something to consider. If you connect to a VPN server in a different country where you do not speak the language, your browser or browsers will reflect that. So if I connect, to a VPN server in Japan, when I click on Google search, it's going to show in Japanese. So if you don't speak Japanese, you probably don't want to connect to a VPN server in Japan. If I connect, and that goes for whatever language you use. Just an FYI. Now you can overcome that a little bit, because you could connect to a VPN server in Japan, but then use a VPN add-on to a browser to connect to a secondary VPN in whatever country that you do speak the language in. So let's say I connected to a VPN server system-wide, let's say in Japan or a country I don't speak the language in. I could then tell my browser to use a browser VPN to connect to a country that I do speak the language in. That way you can overcome that problem. Some people do that because it's doubling up. You're actually connecting to two VPN providers, which is another more secure option. That's a little bit of overkill. Connecting to one VPN provider is more than enough normally. But if you're really paranoid, you can also, have your browser connect to another VPN on top of that. Now, once you've decided whether you're going to use a paid-for VPN provider or a free VPN provider, they're going to, they have configuration files, openVPN configuration files that you download, and these also contain what they call certificate files and key files, encryption key files and stuff like that. Linux Mint 18 makes that much, much simpler than it was in Linux Mint 17. Although it wasn't hard in Linux Mint 17, it's much easier to set up a VPN connection in Linux Mint 18. Okay, now for this video tutorial, I'm going to use VPN Book, and because openVPN is the safest VPN connection encryption protocol, I'm going to use theirs. Okay, so I've gone to the VPN Book website, and you can click on openVPN in the middle of the page, or you can click on Free VPN at the top, and then look under the openVPN column. It's the same thing. On their website, they tell you that their username is always the same, VPN Book, and there's their password. That password changes. If not every couple weeks, then if not every week, then it's at least every couple weeks. But it's simple to edit your VPN connections once they're set up. So now, I'm going to pick one in the US. I'm going to click that link. It's going to pop up, and it's going to say, where do I want to download this? Okay. I recommend that you create a VPN folder underneath your documents folder, or underneath your downloads folder, or I prefer the documents folder. But if you're using a sandboxing application like FireJail, you'll have to use your downloads folder. It's not going to let you save anything to any place else but that. But I prefer using the the documents folder, and then I create a folder called VPN underneath my documents folder, and then if I put all my VPN providers like VPN Book and any others in underneath that folder. So in this case, I'm going to tell it to download it to my Documents folder. Now, I can create a folder beforehand, or I can do it while I'm saving the thing. Up here in the upper right, it says Create Folder, so I'm going to click that. I'm going to type in VPN. I'm going to click Create. But because this is this particular VPN provider is called VPN Book, I'm going to create a subfolder for VPN Book because there's others. There's another. There's VPN Gate. There's, like I said, there's private internet access. If you might want to try more than one. VPN Gate is another free provider, but their servers change frequently, even daily at times. But anyway, I don't want to muddy the water here. Okay, so now I've created two folders, a VPN folder and a VPN Book folder. And I'm going to open that up. Now I'm going to save. Now, the VPN Book openVPN configuration files for what they call their first server in the US. Okay, and you can see it saved it there. You can see here that they have got two servers in the US, one in Canada, one in Germany, one in France, and you can connect to whichever one you want from wherever you are. So I've saved that. Now if I bring up my file manager, which in Linux means Cinnamon, is called Files or Nemo, and you bring that up, and if you click to your Documents folder, you'll see there's a VPN folder, and underneath that is the VPN Book folder I created, and underneath that is an archive file, a zip file, which contains the configuration files for VPN's US1 server. All you got to do is right click it and select Extract Here. Which creates a new folder. And in this case, it's the VPN Book for the US1 server that they have. Now, if you go into that, you open that up, there are 4 different files in here. One's TCP. There are 2 different TCP connections, and UDP. I spoke with the openVPN developers, and they told me if you can use the UDP versions, use those. Use the UDP configuration files. If for some reason that does not work for you, then use the TCP. And you can see that they had the number following that is just a port number. You don't have to worry about the firewalls because it works anyway. So now I have my openVPN configuration files. That's what these .open the .ovpn stands for. Okay, now how do I set that up? Okay, well, it's actually pretty simple. Again, you go to your network manager, you click on that, click on Network Connections, okay, click Add, a new, because you're going to add a new network connection. It says choose a connection type, and there's a whole bunch of different connections. At the bottom it says import a saved VPN configuration. Click that. Then click Create. Now it's asking you, okay, where's the configuration file? Well, it's under, in my case, I put it under the Documents folder, so I click on Documents. I click under the VPN folder. It's a VPN Book VPN provider, so I put it under there, and there'd be a different folder for each server, location. In this case, it's the United States Server 1. So I go in there, and now I pick one of these. It doesn't matter which one you pick. They recommend UDP, so I'm going to pick UDP. I'm going to click one of those. Now I could just double click it, or I can click it once and click open. I'm going to double click it now. And it automatically pops up with editing that VPN connection. And the reason for that is you now have to enter in your username, which is from the VPN book page now. So you type in VPN book, or you could literally just copy and paste it from their website into this, and then you type in the password. Okay, now I am going to copy the password. I'm just going to highlight that from their web page. I'm going to right click it. Select copy. I'm going to go back to my editor and paste it, which you can right click and paste. Now it doesn't show that, but you can click show and it shows you that, and you can make sure it's the same. Now to the right of that is an icon. Now you have options to store this password only for this user, because you could have multiple users on the same computer. You could store it for all users. You could tell it to ask every time. That's a pain. Or the password's not required. Well, it is required. So, I'm just going to leave it on to store the password for this user. Now, earlier I had mentioned that most VPN providers require different certificates. They call them certificates. They're files with information on connecting securely to their servers. There's a user certificate, there's a CA certificate, and then there's a private key certificate. These had to be created in Linux Mint 17, which is pretty easy because it's included in the that .ovpn file. Linux Mint 18 automatically does that for you, which is great. Now, the one option down here says private key password. You don't need that. Click on that and tell it, click on the icon to the far right and say this password is not required. Okay. There's nothing else to be done. I had to enter in my username, my password, tell it to ignore the private key password, and click save. I just added a VPN connection. Now, I can close the network connection box. If you click on the network manager, there should be a new network connection for VPN book in the United States Server 1, and there is. To connect to it, all I got to do is click it once, wait a few seconds, to see if it connects properly, and when it does, it will say so, like up here. VPN connection has been successfully established, and the icon in the system tray changed. It's got a little lock on it now. The icon's very... now if I click that network manager again, you can see that it's got a dot next to which VPN connection I'm connected to. If I want to disconnect, I just click this button here and that'll disconnect it. Now, I'm going to go back to my browser. Now, they recommend after you make a VPN connection that you restart all browsers or messengers and stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to do that, but you do have to refresh every page. Now, I'm going to click on IP Leak Net to make sure that my IP address changed. From my default IP address to this new IP address from the VPN server I connected to. And it did. says I'm connected to a server in Virginia. I'm not in Virginia at the moment. And you'll notice that the DNS servers have also changed. They've inherited DNS servers from the VPN connection, but they also include the DNS server IP addresses that I changed. Now, this comes up to another point. There's a thing called a VP, they call it DNS leak, where different operating systems, Linux Mint, Windows, Mac, and different VPN providers have a problem called DNS leaks, which means I connect to a VPN server. It's not supposed to show my DNS, my local internet service provider DNS servers. It's supposed to only use the ones from the VPN connection. If you see the DNS servers from your local internet service provider, that's called a DNS leak. By changing the default DNS server IP addresses, the way I showed you earlier, you effectively protect yourself from DNS leaks. Because what the servers that are displayed are either from the VPN connection or from the secure DNS provider servers, which is exactly what it's doing. Now, some people are complaining vigorously and rightfully that when I connect to a VPN server, it's not supposed to be leaking DNS. Well, they're right. But the fact is, if you've changed those local internet service provider DNS IP addresses, it doesn't really matter. You're still safe and secure. They don't know who you are, and they don't know where you are. Should they correct that? Yes. But there's a lot of confusion as to whether that's a problem because of the VPN provider, servers, the way that's set up. Is it a problem from the operating system, like Linux Mint or Microsoft Windows or Macintosh? Who knows? There is a process, a little more complicated process I am not going to get into, that will prevent DNS leaks. It's available on the Linux Mint website. But if you simply just change those DNS server IP, addresses to those from a secure, anonymous DNS provider, then it really doesn't matter. You're still safe and secure. So that's how simple it was to add a VPN connection. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I added a program, an applet, they call it, called, I'm trying to locate it, IP indicator, because I want to make certain that my IP address changes when I connect to a VPN server. And if you notice, when I click on the network manager, I've got 2 US servers. I got one in Canada. I could add the others as well, and I could click and connect to whichever one. It's convenient to be able to have an indicator in your system tray or on your desktop that tells you, that helps out with that. In this case, there's one called IP indicator that can be installed on any Linux system. And if it's actually called indicator-IP. I'll put a link to that as well underneath my video. And it's down here in the system tray. It displays your current IP address, your actual local area network IP address, which is this one right here, but also your public IP address. if you're connected to a VPN provider, you'll also see one that says tunnel, like tunnel 0, TUN0 or TUN1 or TN2. That way you know you're connected to a VPN connection. So now all my everything I'm doing while I'm connected is encrypted. I'm much more secure than just surfing the internet without a VPN connection. Now, I mentioned briefly a moment ago that there's also another VPN provider, a free VPN provider called VPN Gate. These are a bunch of generous people, businesses, organizations that have set up VPN Gate servers all over the world. And it's started in Japan. But anybody, anywhere, could set up their own VPN server for business. In fact, a lot of businesses do, for their employees to come in a secure way. You could set up your own VPN server if you wanted to be able to connect from someplace else through your internet connection, your normal internet connection. Most of the time when people connect to VPN servers, it's to access the internet securely. Now, VPN Gate is a like I said, a whole bunch of servers that changes frequently, sometimes multiple times in the same day, which is a pain if you're going to try and use your network manager to import their servers, and then 4 hours later, the one you just imported isn't working. You're like, oh man, all of a sudden you can't connect. And now there's servers all over the world here. Now they display on the VPN Gate webpage, which is www.vpngate.net, the various VPN servers in various countries all over the place. And that may not include a country you want to connect with. And they have different configurations as well. Now, sometimes you get lucky, and there's a VPN Gate server that's going to be available for longer than a day, and they give you information about them. How fast they are. What's the connection speed. How long's it. And the configuration files. Now, sometimes I have found with VPN Gate servers, I can scroll down here and say, oh, I'm going to pick one of these from the United States here. I could pick whatever I want, but I'm going to pick one from the United States, and I go over here to make sure they've got an openVPN configuration file, and they do. It's you can see how some have TCP and UDP. This one only has TCP. If I want one that has both or UDP, then I have to scroll further down. Here's another one. And it's got openVPN configuration files, TCP and UDP. So let's pick this one. So I'm going to pick that. It brings up a new web page. Scroll down. It should have brought up a new web page, and it didn't. So, why didn't it? I didn't refresh this today. It's been sitting on my screen, so I have to scroll down again and look for that VPN connection. There we go. Okay. Now, click that again. Now a new screen pops up. Now it's giving you two options. Actually, it's giving you four options if you scroll down further. One's using a host name and one's using the IP address. The IP address is better. And I've got UDP or TCP. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to pick one. I'm just going to pick this TCP one. Click that. In a moment, it should come up and ask me where I want to save it. Now, right now, I'm using the SlimJet browser, which is a lot like the Chrome browser. But this is a VPN gates provider server, not a VPN book, so I want to save it in a different location. So I click that little ellipse there. I'm going to tell it to go to my documents folder, back to my VPN folder, but now I'm going to create a new folder called VPN Gate. VPN Gate, because it's a different VPN provider. Okay. Now VPN Gate isn't very specific with its naming convention. So, I'm going to, for all the different servers that are available. So this is a US server, so I'm going to put US. And I could put the IP address, but I'm just going to put US. Now I'm going to save this configuration file. I could have added that in there, the IP address as well, to identify if I had downloaded multiple US servers. Now I click download. It's finished. Okay. Bring up my file manager. And go to my documents folder, my VPN folder. And I've got a VPN gate folder now, and a new folder for the US server. And in that is just the openVPN file. I didn't have to, extract an archive file. In this case, it saved the file there. So, again, you click on I want to add this now to my list of VPN server locations through my network manager. Now, in this case, I'm going to disconnect from VPN book right now. And it says disconnected, and the icon changed. Now this time I'm going to use network settings. I could still use network connections, but this time, because I don't know why they have two different options there, but they do. This time I'm going to click network settings to import the VPN configuration file. Now, it's a very similar process. Okay, here are my connections, and there's an add button. So I click the add button. Now, it comes up with different options. Import from file is the one you want. So click import from file. Browse to where you downloaded the openVPN configuration file, which in my case is under documents, under VPN, and now under the VPN Gate provider folder. And it's a US server, so I click on that. And there's the openVPN file, configuration file. So it's already highlighted, so I could just click open. Boom. And it pops up and says, oh, okay. Now, one of the problems with VPN Gate servers is recently it's changed. This should show password with certificates. For some reason, it's only showing certificates. Now, if I change that, then I'm going to lose the information that's already provided under the user certificate, the CA certificate, and the private key. But it needs to be changed, so I'm going to click password with certificates. Oh, they kept it. Wow, that surprises me. Now, VPN Gate always uses the same username and password, and it's VPN. So you type in VPN, there is no private key password, so turn that off. Select the private key password is not required. Okay, and click add. Now I have a VPN Gate server. Now, it probably would help to edit that. And you can just double click it to edit, or click this gear settings icon over here and change the identity name to be more specific. Like, where is this server located? You can use the 2-digit country code, which is what I'm going to do, and just change that and click apply, so that I know, okay, that's a VPN server, VPN gate server in the US. Okay. Now I'm going to close my network manager. Now I click on the network manager again, and now you can see here are my VPN connections, and here's a new one for VPN gate. Okay, so I'm going to click that, and if it connects properly, it should tell me, yep, VPN connection established. Okay, and here it is. Now, one thing I've noticed with VPN gate, sometimes, not all the time, I just told it to download and connect to a VPN gate server in the US. Sometimes it's for a completely different country. So it's, again, important that you verify that that's working, you know. So you go to ipleak.net and make sure that your IP address changed from your normal one, and that it's working. That, I mean, because sometimes, you know, it's a bad connection. You may have to do it twice. You may have to tell it to connect twice. But you want to make sure, hey, I can surf the internet, you know. Well, I just went to ipleak.net and boom, it popped right up. And only this time it now says I'm in Pennsylvania. And the DNS server is showing United States. You may notice, though, it's not leaking. There's no DNS leak. It's not showing my other ones. It's correctly showing, you know, a connection to a VPN connection to a server, you know, a VPN gate server in Pennsylvania, and it's using the same DNS servers. Okay. So you've just seen how to add a VPN connection using two different service providers, one VPN book and the other VPN gate. Now, VPN book works great, but it's limited. Like I said, you can't use torrents, you know, download torrents and stuff like that. You can't use P2P sharing, but it's a pretty fast connection, and if you're just surfing the internet, it's a great way to go, or doing online, you know, doing just normal stuff online. I don't know if you can use it for online gaming because I don't do that, at least not yet anyway. VPN gate servers, on the other hand, are completely unlimited. You can do whatever you want. But they tend to be slower connections. Not always, but they tend to be slower connections. Than other VPN providers. And, as I pointed out, you know, a server that I just connected to may not be there tonight. Or it may not be there tomorrow or the next day, you know. I mean, it may be here 1 minute and gone the next. Some of them stick around a little bit longer. You might get lucky and they might be around for weeks at a time. But there are different options for VPN gate. Now I'm connected and it's working. I mean, I can go to Linux Mint and tell it to, you know, show me all the new posts for Linux Mint, and it's coming right up. I tested it with ipleak.net. It's working. So it's a successful VPN connection. And it changed my IP address from my default IP address, and now I'm going to purposely disconnect from the VPN connection because I'm going to show you, if you are interested in VPN gate, instead of manually saving various VPN gate servers through their VPN gate website, which changes daily, sometimes multiple times during the day, some developers have come up with a really cool ways to access VPN gate servers. And there are two applications that work great for this. One is called VPN Gate with Proxy, which is superb. And another is called AutoVPN. They both work. I prefer VPN Gate with Proxy, and I've talked with a developer on many occasions. This works really, really well for VPN Gate servers. And it's got instructions. I will provide a link to this. This is a much better method. If you want to be able to use VPN Gate servers, instead of manually downloading each individual server, adding it to your system through the network manager, and then using it for however long it lets you use it, because as soon as it stops working, then you should delete it from the your system, and then having to download another one, try it, see if it works, add it to the system. You can use one of these applications. Now, this has instructions on this website, which you bring up a command prompt window. In Linux, they call it a console terminal prompt. In Windows, they call it the command prompt window. And you just copy these instructions one by one, paste it, hit enter, and then do it again. And once you've installed it, now this one works from a console terminal prompt, which I'm going to show you in a moment. Once you've installed it, it creates a folder called VPN Gate with Proxy, and you run it from this folder. Now, you can run it from the terminal. You go get into the folder, right-click the white space, say Open Terminal, Open in Terminal, and you just type in /run and hit enter. It asks for your password. Type in your password. And now it is going to search through all available VPN Gate servers for you. That's pretty cool. Instead of having to go through that list and pick and choose different servers, download them, put them in different folders, and then import it through the network manager, you can use this program and just pick a server right from the list, and you can filter it by clicking F4 if I wanted just servers in the United States or just servers in a particular country. But like I've been pointing out, VPN Gate servers change a lot, and they may not have them in the country you're interested in. I mean, you can look, but now in this you can hit the up arrow, the down arrow, and it scrolls through about 100 different servers. It changes. But the convenient thing is I can just pick one of these. I can just look down the list here and say, oh, okay. And if you're not sure what the 2-digit country codes are, just look at their standard 2-digit country codes. You can look that up on the internet. Obviously, JP is for Japan. US is for the United States. But you can scroll through them and see. GB is Great Britain. And so let's say I wanted to connect to a Great Britain server, an English server. So I'm going to click 29. I just punch in the number next to the server I want to connect to, and hit enter. If it connects, it will say it connected. But see, this one's not connecting. It said VPN got an error, terminated. Okay, so that server's not really working. So I have to find another one. So I'm going to look through the list, So I can either pick another US server, or I can try and find a different server from in a different country. Now I just found another one for Great Britain, 75. So I'm going to punch in 75, hit enter, and hopefully it'll connect. just because it connects doesn't mean it's working. You still have to test it. Now, you notice it says link, it just popped up, link is up, and it said VPN tunnel is established successfully. Okay, now I need to click on my browser and click ipleak.net and make sure it's working, and that it's where it said, I picked a Great Britain server. It should show Great Britain, and it does. United Kingdom. Now, different VPN connections could show different DNS servers from, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they may be using DNS servers, even though I connected to a VPN in England, Great Britain. Its DNS servers could be in, and they are apparently in Belgium. And you can see there's a whole bunch of those. This particular program also prevents DNS leaks. But like I said, DNS leaks are not a problem if you change those default DNS servers like I showed before. So this is working. Now it says, okay, hey, I'm connected, even though I'm in the United States right now, every website I visit or any service I connect to thinks I'm in Great Britain, in particular Manchester. Now, if I click Google, okay, a Google search page, it says United Kingdom, even though I'm in the United States right now. So I know that the VPN connection is working properly. Now, that's a great way to use the free VPN gate servers. But not all of them are active. Not all of them will let you connect. And you always have to verify that, hey, I chose to connect to, Great Britain. Did I connect to Great Britain or someplace else? Now, to exit, you just hit Q to quit. That's it. It comes back to the prompt. If you want to make this simpler, instead of always running this from a, having to bring up a console terminal window, you can simply right-click your desktop, select Create a New Launcher here, type in VPN gate with proxy, because that's the name of this particular application program, and then the command, you browse to that folder that was created from their instructions, which is underneath your home folder, and it's called VPN gate with proxy, and the program is called run. That's the main command. Click OK. Select launch in terminal, because it's it runs from the console terminal. Now, Linux Mint Cinnamon has made this really simple, to add this, to my desktop. So I just click OK. It comes up and says, would you like to add this launcher to your menu? Your start menu. If you want to, say yes. In this case, I'm not going to, but you could say yes if you wanted to. Now, if I look on my screen, there's a VPN gate with proxy icon. And I could just double-click that, enter in my password, and it works the same way. It takes it a moment to, because it's reading all the various VPN gate servers that are available today at this time. And once it does that, it'll pop up a list. Boom, there it is. This is by far one of the easier methods of connecting to various VPN gate servers. But most people only connect, if you've got a reliable VPN provider, like a paid-for VPN provider, from private internet access or Proton VPN or one of the others, or even a free one from VPN Book, you're probably only going to connect to the same server most of the time. So you only have to create like one connection, because I like to test VPN providers, and because I help people in the Linux Mint forums. I go through this a lot. I normally use Linux Mint KDE, but for this I've been using Linux Mint Cinnamon for this. Anyway, I hope this was informative and that helped. So I hope you all have a great day, and